Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel. Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay then, one more time. Tally, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost there. Okay. Oh! Whew! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshobeh yancheni b'magalet tzedek leman shemo.
Amazing. Good evening, everyone. We've literally just had a power cut here. Give us 30 seconds and the power will be back on. Um, I'm just going to use a torch in the meantime. So, welcome to this live stream on David, the animated feature film. We are so excited to have you join us tonight on today in the US time. And there, our lights are coming back on. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that interlude. The power went off as we started, but super warm welcome to this live stream on David. And it's Thanksgiving week. So thank you so much for your time this week. Particularly, I'd like to say a super warm welcome to Tim Tebow's fans. He's going to be joining us later this evening, which is so special and so kind of him to give us time on this week in particular as we head towards year end. But yeah, very warm welcome. The one thing we want from these live streams is for it to be a really authentic relationship, as if we were sitting across the table from you having a coffee chat. We really want to invite you into the process, and we want to share our story, and we want to share the story in every way through these live streams and as we live it out. And I really hope these live streams are a chance for you to get to know us, the creators, for you to get to know deeply about the project and have a look behind the scenes. I think so often we go to movies and you go and you watch a movie, but it's so interesting to find out what's actually going on behind the curtain, how it's made. And particularly animated feature films, they typically can take 4 to 7 years to make. And so they're an incredible undertaking. And we'd love to just start to share and just share with you what goes on behind the scenes so you can get to know the journey and the story. So that's one of the purposes of this live stream. We love that saying, which is our sunrise saying as a studio, inspire through story. And just now I'm going to invite Tim onto the screen, but he's one of the most amazing people in terms of inspire through story. His life is an inspiration. The story is lived. And that's why he's such an amazing guest for us to share with tonight. The one thing quickly before I invite Tim on screen, with Black Friday coming on, we're actually just launching our David merchandise. But I want to tell you a little bit about it, not so much because of sales, but because of in everything we do, we want meaning. So I'm wearing this bracelet here, which has got yellow, blue, and green in it. And it's the exact same bracelet that David wears in the short you just saw and what he's going to be wearing in the movie. But what I wanted to share with you, the techlit blue, it's a very specific blue, and it represents God's voice to ancient Israel and in the scriptures. So when you see this blue, it's to remind you of God's voice. The white is really David's incredible understanding of God's mercy. And when he wrote his Psalms, how he just talked about God's mercy. And later, Isaiah talks about, although your sins were as red as scarlet, they'll be as white as snow. There in this little image, you can see the bracelet on David's wrist that I'm also wearing. So the white represents God's mercy, the blue represents God's voice, and then the green is the emerald from the tribe of Judah. And really it represents you belong to God's family. And so the little bracelet comes with a card like this, which has got all that meaning on it. And at the front it says from Deuteronomy 11, verse 18, commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these words of mine, tie them to your hands. May this bracelet be a reminder whenever you need it most of God's presence and faithfulness. And so as you go and look at what we're starting to sell, we really want it to have meaning. It must inspire, it must be through story. So yeah, if you go and check that out, even this shirt, by the way, it refers to the logo, that side. And that A comes from an archaeological find where it was literally means the house of David. So even the movie logo, which is on the shirt, has got meaning in it. So I just wanted to share that with you as you look at that. But I'm so excited to invite Tim on in a second, one, because of his amazing journey himself, but also I love sport, and I'm often using sporting analogies. And so obviously he's got an amazing history in sport as well as other things. But for me, I often talk to my kids about the aggregation of marginal gains, which means if you continue to do a lot of small things well, the aggregation of that creates an incredible result. And and in sports, that's particularly true, and in anything that's true. But that's why I wanted to get Tim on this live stream tonight and just have a chat as we head in towards Thanksgiving. And so without further ado, so we can actually spend more time with Tim than me, Tim, I'd love to invite you onto the live stream with me. And thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Hey, first of all, I just got to say, I love the monologue. I love what you were sharing. I love the archaeological find. I love the bracelets. I mean, I feel left out because I don't have one yet, and I'll wear it and I'll be rocking it, man. I think it's awesome. You know, I think we so need reminders like that of, right? Yeah. Even though it's a bracelet and people say, okay, you know, what's a bracelet? Well, a bracelet, you know, is in life, there's so many distractions, and we can look down and we can remember God's voice, we can remember that, we're white as snow as far our sin as far as the east is from the west, right? And that's a reminder to fill us with inspiration, right? And encouragement, and then to be able to know that we're part of God's family, right? Like, in this time of Thanksgiving that we're celebrating here, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can look down at that and remember, this is why I get to be thankful. I don't have to, sometimes it's hard and sometimes circumstances to find reasons to be grateful, because, sometimes life can be hard, but we also always can be grateful when we remember, God's voice and how he loves us and how he has a plan for us and how our sins are washed as white as snow and we're part of God's family. We always get to be thankful and rejoice and be grateful in that. And I love it. I love the meaning of it. I love the inspiration that can provide, because we always need things to remind us and keep perspective. Our mindset's so important, how we start every single day. And I just think little things like that we should never take for granted, right? Because they can be just little reminders throughout the day and throughout our lives of ways that we can remember, because there's so many things that get us off track.
Yeah.
And, there's 22 times that Moses reminded the Israel that said in Deuteronomy, either remember or do not forget, right? Remember what God has done for you. Do not forget what God has done for you. Do not forget how faithful he's been. And you would think, Phil, right after we, went through something of getting rescued like that and saw the waters part and went through it, like, we would never need to be told to remember that, right? But you know what?
Yeah.
Time passed, and days passed, and all of a sudden they're forgetting God's faithfulness. And that's why Moses is constantly telling them, remember, do not forget. And we also need that reminder as well. I know I do.
No, thank you. That's awesome, eh? I love that. And I'm going to dive into a few questions with you, Tim. Before I do, I did forget to say on this live stream, what's different about this live stream to others is we've officially opened our round of funding. So it's no longer just pledging. So if you want to find out more about the project and you want to be on the adventure with us, you can go to angel.com/David or thedavidmovie.com. They'll put up the URL there. And that's where you can find out more about the project and actually invest and be a shareholder in the movie, which is so exciting. But Tim, I wanted to ask you a question, because you've actually bought shares. So you've not just participated, you've literally gone and bought shares yourself. But what made you join the project from a heart level? And yeah, just why are you on this project as an executive producer, and what drew you to it? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's quite a few things. It was getting the chance to be able to meet you and some of your team in South Africa and be able to break bread together. Even though I don't really eat carbs, we still have food together, and we had just a great time getting to know you and your heart of how you feel like God put this on your heart. Getting to see the partnership with Angel Studios and Sunrise Studios, because I also believe part of God's heart is for us as believers to work together. It's not to be so siloed. And I love how y'all have partnered, and I love how you've brought people from all talents and all backgrounds around the world to be part of your team that have been gifted in amazing ways. Like in another one of the videos, you talk about how so many people were from so many different places and worked at so you brought an amazing team together, and I love that. And then when I was able to see the trailer of David and Tally for the first time, I was mesmerized, and I just thought, man, this is awesome. But then, being able to study David over the years, and someone that has such massive highs and also disappointing lows, but still is called a man after God's own heart. And he's just I think a biblical character that we can all look at and learn from: the good, the bad, the sincerity, the disappointments, the relationship, the intimacy he had with God, and how I think that story being told could just massively impact so many lives. And then y'all's vision to be able to share it around the world in such a big way of really trying to unify the church behind it, but then have it be a place where you can invite whoever to come, right? This can be something that can be an easy invitation. Sometimes it's hard to get people to go to a service, but I think it's going to be easy to invite our friends to be able to come hear the story of David, right? In such a fun, uplifting, entertaining way. And so those are just a few of the ways, but I have so many more of why I believe and love this project and the vision that you have behind it.
No, thanks, Tim. And I love one thing you're saying. I was talking to my wife the other day saying exactly what you said. David failed spectacularly and he succeeded spectacularly. But what was beautiful about him was that he always trusted God's goodness. So I was saying, like a little child, if they get themselves stuck up a tree, even if they got themselves up there, they call to their dad, "Dad, I need help," you know. And David was that kind of character. He'd get himself up all sorts of trees and up rocks, but he always knew exactly who to go to and where to turn. So I love him because he's so relatable. He was far, far from perfect. But the big thing about David is he knew his dad was and he knew where to go. But I wanted to jump into a sports thing with you because we all know how easy it is to make it to the top in the sports field. I mean, I was saying to my son the other day, he's playing sport, I said, yeah, basically you just eat pie, sit on the couch, and, you're going to get to the top if you trust God. No, I'm joking. I was saying, I'd love to hear your story about what it took. Because as a filmmaker, we're striving to really strive for excellence and compete with the best of the best. But I'd love to hear as a sportsman what it actually took to get to the top in terms of dedication, mindset. But yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What did it take for you to get to the top in the sports world?
Well, I think it takes all of those things. I think it takes a mindset of being willing to embrace the grind, a mindset of sacrifice, a mindset of you got to put even a lot of good things to the side so that you can pursue this thing that you're going after. You got to give up, time with friends. You got to give up even sleep. I had a couple quotes on my door growing up. One of them was, "Somewhere he is out there training while I am not, and when we meet, he will win." And it sounds negative, and I actually saw it during a March Madness commercial. One of the most famous coaches in America, Mike Krzyzewski, was saying it, and then showed kids from all around the world shooting free throws. And I was so impacted that I went and I wrote it down, and I was too young. I couldn't get it all written down. My mom helped me, and she finished the quote. We put it on the door, and I used to go read it, and then I would set an alarm in the middle of the night to go train and go work out because I believed that no one else in the world was training in those moments. And so that was just something that would motivate me, the thought of no one else is training at this moment. And so those are different thoughts of things to push you. And then the second quote I had on my door was, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work as hard." And it's something that I've always believed in because, although God gave me some athletic ability, I was never the most talented, or very rarely was I the most talented. But I would just always have the mindset that if I'm close enough and you give me enough time, then I'm going to chip away every single day, and I'm going to get one more inch, one more inch, one more inch. And eventually you're going to flinch and I'm going to surpass you. And, and when we look at passion, right? Passion is actually one of my favorite words that I love getting a chance to talk about, because we always put it in the same category as like excitement, as motivation, as hype, as all of these words. And it's so different because passion actually is a 12th century Latin word that actually means to suffer. And they came up with it because of the passion of the Christ. And they were like, well, this guy named Jesus cared so much for people that he was willing to die on a cross, that he was willing to suffer to go die on a cross. So you know what? I guess that's what this word we're going to call passion, is the passion of the Christ. Is I care so much for something, I'm willing to suffer for it. And so for a lot of my life, that was sports. I loved it so much, I was willing to suffer, give up sleep, give up time, play with broken bones, different things like that. And then ultimately what I felt like, God was calling me to in the middle of that is, hey, if you're willing to suffer to be the best you can in a game, or win a game, or a trophy, or a championship, then what would you actually be willing to do for things that really matter, like hurting people, like the Great Commission, like sharing God's love with the world? And, I think one of the things that really convicts me is probably in my life, Phil, I've probably done more to try to be as good as I could at a game than I have to share the good news of the gospel around the world. And I hope I don't end my life that way, where I spend the rest of my days trying to be more passionate about the things that are going to last forever. And it's not that games, aren't important. It is. It's fun, and it's something that's great, and it's awesome. It just matters so much less than other things, and it's so important that we always put that into perspective, because one of the things that, especially here in America, that we lose over sports is perspective. I mean, just this weekend, we call it rivalry weekend, and there's so many teams that will face off. Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Florida, Florida State, and Auburn, Alabama, and USC, Notre Dame, and Ohio State and Michigan, and you will literally have states that are just going head to head, and there will be trash talk, and families are divided. They'll celebrate Thanksgiving on Thursday, and they won't talk for the next 48 hours because their teams are playing. And you think I'm exaggerating, and I'm really not. And it'll be massive. And we do all that for a game, and it's fun, and I love it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but we put so much of that passion into a game. What if we put that passion and more for Jesus, and telling the story of David, and being able to encourage people and inspire people and uplift people and help hurting people and feed people and care for people, and do whatever we can so that they know that God loves them, and so do we. What if we put that passion into the hurting people around the world? The impact we could make, I think, would be pretty surreal.
No, that's amazing. Eh? By the way, I love quotes, so I'm going to capture those quotes later. I love them. And I didn't know that about the word passion. That is amazing. I'm going to latch onto that. My family gets sick of me giving them quotes, but now they're going to get the passion one from you.
So I love it. Come on.
But going to your points, it's so interesting, because we're trying to make a movie at a very interesting time in the world, and the way we're making it is a bit like David with a slingshot versus Saul with his armor, and then the message we're trying to bring is one of inspiration and hope, which is running quite contrary to a lot of what media and films are doing today, especially in the kids space. If you look at some of the content that's coming out, it's not going into that space where we're wanting to go. But an interesting thing, I know you love sport and you put your body on the line, and a question though, you were willing to cut across culture, which must have been difficult not cut across culture, but to keep your channel and your line despite pressures from outside you. And this phenomenon, Tebowing, if I've got it right, came about. Just tell us a bit about how you managed to find the strength to keep your strength and your compass through it all, and what Tebowing was, and what made you do that, and how, because I heard so many people were inspired by it. But tell us a bit about Tebowing, and also how you held your line and your compass through that time.
Well, I appreciate you for saying that, and I don't know that I always did it perfectly. I know I didn't do it perfectly, but it was just something that, in the midst of so much scrutiny and pressure, I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about the one that I serve, and so in 2011, because we went on a kind of a crazy, surreal win streak where it was a bunch of comebacks and crazy wins, and before and after games, I was getting on a knee and praying, and it just somehow caught on, Tebowing. But what was interesting about that, and people from all over the world started doing it, and literally they would send in photos from all over and all sorts of places, and
wow.
But what's interesting is people would ask you, say, "Oh, so why did you start doing this?" And I would say, "I didn't start. It's actually something I've done since I was a sophomore in high school, and it's just now getting talked about because it's getting scrutinized in a different level." And I think that it was cool that I could point back and say, "Man, when there was only a couple hundred people at a high school game, it was the same thing." Because for me, I get nervous, and I know pride can get a hold of me, and I know I can make it about me, and I just don't. So God, would you just give me the strength to honor you and play to the best of my ability, but more so, just if I get the chance to honor you, to live for you, to love you, to just make it bigger than a game. And if we lose, and if I do bad, that I would still be able to have the strength to honor you, the humility if we win, but the still the dedication and the praise if we lose. And it's so easy when you win a game to say, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but I still want to thank him if I lose too. And it was more so before and after the games of trying to help keep perspective of what mattered, because everyone either wants to make it about you in a good way or you in a bad way, right? You're either going to get praised or you're going to be the villain, right? And so either way, God, I just give me the strength to be able to handle it. And it was something, and people then asked me, hey, what do you think about this Tebowing? And honestly, I wasn't really sure. And one thing I would just say is, hey, at least prayer is getting talked about, all around the world. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Oh, that's awesome. And Tim, one thing I love about you is that you always point back to God, not to yourself, which is amazing. So thanks for that.
Well, if I pointed back to myself, then I would just let a lot of people down. So
exactly. I love it. Quickly, I want to talk about sports comebacks, but why I want to talk about it very quickly is because I love comebacks. And in business and in sport, you've got like in a match. We play rugby here, which is pretty similar to American football, but the tide kind of flows that way and it flows this way. Sometimes you're defending, sometimes you're attacking. And as we go into this next crowdfunding road, we're hitting an interesting time in the US with the economy and people just like really thinking through how they invest. So we're feeling brave, we're feeling excited about this round. But I guess I want to talk about comebacks. And I'd love to know, just for story's sake, because I love story, in your memory, and then you can talk about it in general, about the mindset behind from coming from behind. But what game stands out in your mind or situation mind, which was your biggest, being down the most and coming back the most in a game, just so we can hear a specific example of, for you, what was a big comeback. And then talk about comebacks in general. What creates comeback? Where does the fight come from?
I love it. It's such a good question. I think the first one I think of was in 2011. It was my first start that season against the Miami Dolphins at Miami, and we fell behind 15-0, and nothing was going our way. And there was probably only, maybe 3-4 minutes to go in the game, down 15-0, and it was just, 56, 57 minutes where it was brutal, and we were getting beaten down, and our team rallied, and we went down the field, we scored, and we were able to get a stop, get the ball back, be able to score, get a 2-point conversion, go to overtime, be able to drive down, kick a game-winning field goal, and there's a lot of amazing things, but the offense made plays, defense made plays, special teams made plays. Everybody came together, and it was just if one of those plays didn't work out, we lose. It was, 16, 17, 18 plays in a row, offense, defense, special team, that every single play just worked out perfectly for us to be able to have this amazing comeback. And it was a surreal win for us. And I just remember our team celebrated, and it really gave our team so much belief, and we carried that belief throughout the year that actually a couple weeks later, I think, it was maybe 2 weeks later, we started a 6-game win streak that I think every one of those was a comeback. And so that was just surreal. And I think a comeback it's very interesting for a couple reasons. One, because to have a comeback, it means it's guaranteed that somehow in that game there's a setback, right? It's impossible to have a comeback without a setback, right? It's just impossible. So it means that at some point you're going to be down. At some point it didn't go your way. At some point you failed. Your flawed plays, flawed game plan, flawed strategy. Something was flawed in it, right? And that means you have to be willing to adjust. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to fix it and rally. And so I think that it's fascinating. But what happens so many times in comebacks or setbacks is it's just so easy to get down, right? It's so easy to think, oh man, like it didn't go our way. Today's a bad day. And it didn't work out. It's just disappointing. And it's hard to rally people. Versus a different mindset would be one of saying, okay, we have a setback. It's disappointing. Yeah. We're losing. It's not the way we want to start it. But it's put us in a position for one of the greatest comebacks ever, right? It's put us in a position to have a comeback, right? And that's what's special. As a kid, when would you ever say, I'm up to bat and I'm winning by 7 in the 9th inning? You'd never say that. You would say, hey, I'm down by 2 or down by 3, bases are loaded, 2 outs, pressure pack situation. Or you would say, it's a Hail Mary, last play of the game, got to score. Or you take a shot and it would be, down by 2 in all of these situations, right? And whatever sport you want to say, but so many times to get to that situation means that the game didn't go our way. But one of the things I love about sports is it teaches you to be resilient and your mindset to adjust and still be fierce, but yet willing to change. And it's hard for both of those to coincide, right? Is to not lose your competitiveness, but to say, okay, our game plan, it's flawed. Let's adjust it a little bit, but still have the mindset of saying, okay, well, you know what? It hasn't gone our way, but watch how special. Because everybody wants to be part of a great comeback, but you can only be part of a great comeback if there's been a sucky setback. So let's, instead of having the mindset of, oh, the first however minutes hasn't been our way, no, let's have the mindset of, hey, if we accomplish this, it'll be one of the most special comebacks of all time.
Yeah, I love it. I feel inspired listening to you. That's awesome. I was saying, and I love my quotes. I'll give you one, but just listening to you talk, I feel pumped. It's Winston Churchill where he says, success is going from one failure to another without losing enthusiasm, which kind of speaks to that mentality.
Yeah.
And I was reading a saying of Michael Jordan's, and I can't remember the exact number, but he was just saying, the reason I've succeeded is because I've failed so much. We've lost this many games. I was entrusted with the winning shot, and I missed it. And, so he just goes through his failure and he says, but that's why I succeeded.
I know that quote.
And so just saying about setback, I love that, because as you hit a failure or a setback, it's an opportunity to learn and grow and keep your enthusiasm. But just hearing you talk, I feel really excited. It's really awesome what you're saying.
I love that quote by Michael Jordan too, where he just at the end of it, he said, I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. And I love that, because also to fail means you're willing to put yourself in a situation to succeed or fail, right? You put yourself back on the line, you put yourself back in the game, right? And that's what we have to do, is just continually put ourselves back in and be willing, right? Because when you play a game, there's a risk. You're going to win or lose, but you know what? You keep using that as a win or a learning moment, and you're going to keep getting better and better and better.
No, that's amazing. One thing I wanted to say to the crowd, because we were talking at the beginning about being authentic, is what I really want to talk about is actually, this has been in my heart for 20 years, this movie. And so one thing I can promise people, we're not going to give up. We will die on the battlefield rather than not make this movie. And that's why I love like the Battle of Thermopylae with the 300 Spartans, because this battle is something we're going to do whether we live or die. And so one thing I want to encourage, we've got great momentum. We've already got great investment in the film, but we're bound to hit some headwinds at different points on our journey and adventure, especially because making an animated film is, a few years long. And so you're definitely going to hit difficulty. But one thing I really want to tell people who are joining us is we can't promise anything except that we are never going to give up. We are going to keep going no matter what the setbacks. I'm not in this for business. I'm in this for a much bigger reason. And I'd rather die on the sport or the battlefield. And that's why I'm so glad you're in EP with us, Tim, because that's what you bring from the sports field. I just feel you're such a brother on this journey, because I love that mentality. And I wanted to ask you another thing. Going back, sorry, you want to say something before I ask another question?
Well, I was just going to say, I think what's so impactful to me, and I think to a lot of listeners, is that this is something that has been in your heart and your head for a long time, and it's never died and it's never wavered. And I think vision is also contagious. I think passion is contagious, but also vision is contagious. It's something that you've had a vision for and passion for so long, and I think that's something that you spent so long fighting for, and this is coming to life. And of course there's going to be setbacks and obstacles, because we have an enemy, and I don't think he wants this project to get done. But you know what? also believe in your perseverance and the team that you've built, and I'm grateful to be a small part of it. And hopefully more people that are watching want to be a part of it too, of a project that we think is going to be an eternal project, to have eternal difference and eternal significance. And I think that's why you had the vision and the passion, because this isn't yes, it might take 4 to 7 years to make, but we know the impacts will last for eternity.
No, it's amazing. Thank you. I've got another question for you, which is it links back to sport, but it's connected to life, and that is the thing of unity. And so what I was going to say, I was watching Gladiator again recently, and there's one scene where they're going to reenact this moment where the Roman army is going to come into the arena, and him and his merry men are the small group, and basically they're going to get slaughtered. But what he says is to them, guys, whatever comes to those gates, we've got more chance of winning if we stick together. Now, why I want to talk, I first want you to give me some thoughts on unity in sport, but then unpack that a little bit, because as we live in a culture where this movie we're trying to get made is going to require incredible unity from the community. But I want to first start with sport as to why is unity such a key factor to team success, because we can just see it in any team sport, but you've lived it, you've been in an actual sports match where you've got superstars. Often you've got teams who've got massive superstars, but they don't click. You've got teams with less superstars, but they end up winning. And just talk me through unity when you're in a team environment, why it's so critical from your point of view, and how it works,
Well, by bringing up 300 and by bringing up Gladiator, you made me, and then Unity, you made me think of one of the best attack combat formations ever in history, was something called the phalanx, and it was something where every soldier would have a shield over them, and it would attach right to their partners, and it would cover part of their partners, and they would have a spear that would come out, and they would all work together. And so for hundreds of years, the best fighting formation was this phalanx formation, that you could take a smaller group of soldiers, but because they worked together in unity, and they covered part of their brother, and then their brother covered part of their brother, and they worked together, it was something that for years was the best fighting formation. And it just made me think of that, of how important unity is, on the battlefield, but how important unity is in the body of Christ, how important unity is in a project like this, and also on the sports field. I'll tell you what, it is a lot easier to lose inside the locker room than it is on the field, and because you have guys that go in their own ways, they're different places. But the best teams that I've been a part of is a team where you have people from all different backgrounds, all different places, but you come together on a common mission, with a common goal, with a common purpose, that if succeeds, helps everybody. And a high tide raises all the ships. And when you get a team to buy in, man, it's special, because what happens is, yes, you succeed, but you also bond, right? You bond in those moments, and now people from all walks of life are best friends. And man, those are just the most special relationships, some of the most special relationships I have in my life is coming from bonding over a common ground, and then realizing we have more in common than we even thought we did. We bonded over one thing, but now we're friends over many. And that was just really, really special. And then I also believe that in, at our foundation, our fourth non-negotiable is there's power when we come together. And we believe that is a biblical principle. We believe that is something that we need to live out. Like, Phil, man, we could talk long enough and find things we disagree with, and my dad's my biggest hero, my biggest role model. And I could talk with him and find things we disagree with. But sometimes we focus on the areas we disagree versus the area that we have common ground. And that's where we need to lead. And that's where we need to fight with, is those common ground areas. And I also feel like that's something that the church has done for, unfortunately, far too long, is they find few things that they disagree. And it's not that they don't matter. It's just, let's put that in the background and have conversations, that should take place. But we lead with the unity. We lead with our love for God, our love for Jesus, our love for people. Let's lead with that, and let's come together over that. while we continue to, with respect for one another, have conversations. And I think that in our society, I know here and all around the world, man, there's so much more that bonds us than tears us apart. But unfortunately, we just don't focus on it enough, and we don't make that the priority. And I think here together, what we're making the priority is a project that is going to impact so many lives, and we can come together over that. And that's why I think, that's why I also believe what you've done with this project and who you've brought together as a team is something that a lot of people believe it is worth coming together for. And I know I have. And so that's why I'm grateful that you've built this, and it's just so exciting to be a part of.
No, that's awesome, and I'm just so inspired. I'm finding this. I was making some notes just now while you were talking, but I just want to say my mom used to tell me a story, which I really want to mention it at this moment because I think it's relevant. I hadn't planned to, but it's connected to how bonding happens through setbacks or through tough times together. But she was telling me about Hudson Taylor's missionary society to China back in the years, and all the other missionary societies were saying would take care of your kids' school fees and medical aid and offering security. And his mission was, I promise you death, I promise you malaria, but I promise you a chance to preach the gospel. And so what that drew was an incredible kind of person, and his missionary society really grew the strongest. And of course, he looked after his people as best he could and stuff, but he called them towards the battle cry and towards the vision, like you're saying, not towards the security. And I think this David movie, we're going into an interesting place where it's really got to play. It's got to compete like on a sports field. And we've got a saying as you come up the stairs at our Tim, which is from Lord of the Rings with Gimli the dwarf, where he says, certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for? So it's like, that's the way we go.
I love it.
We go forward. And it's not a negative thing. It's for me, such a positive thing. That's like, okay, that's a vision. Yes, of course, we're trying to take on a giant and take on Goliath, but it's exciting, and I just love that. That's why I love sports so much, because it just parallels so much of what happens in life. It's such a good, like, parable almost, sport often, what.
But I think a little bit of like what you're referring to is people also want to get behind big visions, what I was mentioning earlier, and you mentioning that, and the quote from the missionaries is like, he's giving them a vision. Okay, it's going to be worth it to do this. It's going to be worth it to take on this fight because the gospel's worth it, right? And what you're saying is this is going to be hard and there's going to be obstacles, but it's worth it because this is why we get in what we get to proclaim. And I think that vision rallies people, and people want to be part. Best coaches I've ever played for gave a vision for their team. The best pastors, they gave a vision for their church. The best missionaries, they give God put a vision in their heart of who they can, get to around the world. And, I think we want to follow people with vision of what can be because they're seeing it, and this is how we can get there.
No, that's amazing. I love that. By the way, for people who are listening, Tim's got to go soon, but if you've got a couple of questions, then we might be able to take a couple of quick questions from the crowd if there's someone who's got a specific question.
Yeah, come on. Let's get some questions, guys.
Some questions. More for Tim than for me, but if you've got a question for Tim, do shout. One thing while we're waiting for questions, and the tech team, if you've got a question, just feel free to shout when you've got one. But I was just thinking, I love what you're saying. Okay. Will David be
Tebowing in the movie? Hey, that's up to Phil, but I doubt it. I'm sure he'll be praying at times, though.
I'm sure we're going to have to give David his signature move, though. That it's just realizing that he's looking to God. I like that. Will David be Tebowing in the movie? He'll have his own Tebowing move, I'm sure. Which I love that.
I love it.
That's a
that
great
is
question.
Funny. It is.
One other thing, for another question. I was just thinking, here's another question. Let's go. Thanks, Tim, for sharing a little bit of your amazing David story with us. What are your plans for the future? So, Tim, over to you to answer that.
Thank you, Lori, for the question. My biggest hopes and dreams and plans is the work that we're doing at the Tim Tebow Foundation to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need. But to really sum that up, it's to fight for people that can't fight for themselves all around the world. And we're fortunate to be in 73 countries and counting, and trying to get to as many hurting, abandoned, trafficked, thrown away abused people, because we want to be able to rescue them physically and then share the good news of the gospel with them. And that's just the biggest thing that God has put on my heart. So to get to the hurting people around the world.
Oh, it's incredible. And Laurie, when Tim was with us in Cape Town, he shared some of the stories behind what they're doing. It's amazing. It's like, and that's a big giant that you're taking on there. So it's very inspiring. Yeah. And then we'll just see if there's any more questions. I know you've got to go fairly soon, but if while we're waiting, if there's not another question right now. Okay, so we will stop with that as last question. One last thing I was going to say, Tim, and then maybe you want to leave a thought with people before you go. I was reading this beautiful poem the other day about a little boy who went to build sandcastles on the beach with his dad. And you build sandcastles to fight the tide, but you always know the tide will eventually win. But you put feathers, you put shells, and you build this beautiful sandcastle. And then when the sandcastle finally gets swept over, they run inside to the sea cottage and has hot chocolate with his dad. And what he was saying is, look, at the end of the day, we live life, we build these sandcastles, but the big thing that's happening is the relationship with your dad, which is God,
Yeah.
So he's saying, if you're making a movie or if you're building a business, it's great. Give it everything you've got and enjoy it. Like you're saying, there's nothing wrong with enjoying a great game of football. Do it with all your heart. But it's actually a beautiful context to get to know your dad. And at the tides of time, it wiped out the Egyptian Empire, the Roman Empire. So we know the tides of time will take down your empire or whatever you're doing. It's just a sandcastle. But just like in your life, football was such a beautiful part of it. How did God, as a context for you, because that was your sandcastle at that time in your life, and you've got different ones now, but what did you learn about God through sport? Like, what, as your dad, how did you get to know him as you built that sandcastle? And what did you learn about his character?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think sounds because of the pressure you feel or you put on yourself, and you feel like you're under the microscope, is I feel like you just depend on him because he's the place you go for refuge. When the criticism or the naysayers, he's the place you go for. That's the same yesterday, today, and forever. His love for you will never change. And so you want to have an identity that's a roller coaster, good days and bad days, then you put it in sports. You want to have an identity that's the same, then you're going to find refuge in your relationship with Christ. And then I think it's just something that not only does it help you with those ups and downs, and it helps you with your identity, but also helps you with perspective. Because if there's one thing that it's really easy for us here in the States to lose based on sports, it's perspective of, man, we just think a game is everything, right? Or I got to win today. And there's so many times that God used people in my life, different, times and mission trips and different places all over the world to remind me that the game wasn't everything, and that God didn't put me here to win or lose a game, right? Now, God can use, baseball or football or games. He can use that, but that's ultimately not my purpose. It's not a game, and it's always so much more than a game. And those are just a few things that I learned through sports, and I'm so grateful for it. But I also would say that sports is something that is great because it teaches you to constantly persevere and keep fighting. And I feel like in this journey of life and trying to walk by faith, it's not always an easy one, and you're getting ups and downs, and there's can feel like roller coasters. And that's one of the reasons that a few years ago I wrote a book called Shaken, and I remember calling the publishers and being like, I got the name, it's called Shaken. And they were like, no, you mean unshaken, right? Because your faith is so strong, you're unshaken. And I said, no, it's the exact opposite. It's that when everything in your life, it feels like it's shaken, that even in those moments that you still have a firm foundation in a relationship with Christ and your identity. Even it feels like everything else around you is not what you wanted it to be or hoped it would be or prayed that it would be, that God's still in control. And so you can still put your faith in him even when it feels like everything around you is shaken.
I love that. And so for those of you listening, I think that's a huge takeaway as we draw near the end. It's like forgetting about our movie, your life. If you're listening, you've got your own story. And what Tim's just saying there is like, I just love what you're saying. You're going to take it and put it into your life. and keep going, keep persevering. And that's what sport taught Tim, and whatever's happening in your life, you can use that to learn that as well. So Tim, thank you. I just want to say, hope you have the most amazing Thanksgiving, Tim. And I just want to say as well, I feel like I'm next to a fellow gladiator as we go into this field of making David. One thing I was going to say, which I love about David, and I hope this movie does many things, but one of the things I hope it does is, if you look at David's life, there's this generation where there's just not a lot of mighty men, and then you read the Chronicles about the list of mighty men. And so one thing I hope, the way we make this movie, the way we live our lives, the way we tell the story, and then what the movie actually does, I'm really hoping it inspires people. And Tim, I know, thank you for your story and for inspiring us and for joining us on this movie. I feel I'm locked shields with a fellow Spartan, and I'm really looking forward to the adventure with you. Yeah.
Well, how cool is that thought to think that this project could inspire some young boys and girls to be those next mighty men and women for God, and maybe that will, God can use it to spark something in their heart to seek after Him and also run after hurting people. And I just think that would be really cool. What a good vision that is.
No, cool. And happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have an amazing time with family. I've written down all your quotes. I was taking notes while you were talking, so I've got more out of this call than anyone else, but thank you.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me and for what you're doing, and thanks for just letting me be a small part. And please tell the whole team I said hey, and we look forward to talking again real soon.
Thank you, Tim. And I'll stay on to take a few more questions and talk, but thank you. We want to let you go because I know you got another thing. Thank you for joining us so much.
Appreciate you, brother.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, what a privilege to spend some time with Tim. That was just so special. And I just love his analogies and stories, and I love quotes. So that was like really special. Quickly to say, just as we draw to an end, if you want to invest, the cool thing is we're not pledging anymore. We're actually in a fundraising round, which you can go to angel.com/David. And you can actually have a look there. There's a lot of information there, which I'd encourage you to read first. But there is an opportunity to invest in the project and be a partner and be part of the adventure with us. And yes, there's going to be some ups and downs, no question, and some huge challenges. But I really feel if we stick together, we'll get through it and we'll make an amazing, amazing movie. I'd just like to end by reading you guys a poem, which is up behind me here. You can see a beautiful map, which is our kind of company map wall. And at the end of that wall, there's a poem by Sir Francis Drake, who lived in the 16th century, a very interesting character. And he spent a lot of time on the sea. And he wrote this very beautiful poem, which I'd just like to read to you, which is called Disturb Us, Lord. And I'll just read it to you as we go close out today's live stream. Disturb us, Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true, because we've dreamed too little, when we arrive safely, because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, when with the abundance of things we possess, we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity. And in our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision, new heaven, to dim. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas, where storms will show your majesty. Where losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes and to push into the future in strength, courage, hope, and love. And I just think that's a beautiful poem to inspire us. I love that one verse where it says to lose sight of the shore. And as we go towards Thanksgiving, we've got a chance to reflect. I would really encourage you just to go look up that poem and read it over Thanksgiving. It's just a beautiful and inspiring poem. And it's one of our guiding lights as we go on the David movie, that this is part of our journey, is to lose sight of the shore and really sail out there and try and push out the boundaries. So guys, I just want to say thank you so, so much for your time today. And really, I hope for those of you in the US that it's an amazing Thanksgiving. You have a great time. Please watch the space, watch our social media. And one last, if you want to go check out the project, go to angel.com/David. And please give us your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Anything's welcome. We're on a journey together. And we'll end by just playing the demo one more time now. And yeah, have a wonderful day and great Thanksgiving for those in the US.
Look into my eyes. Do you see fear? You come at me with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the God of Israel.
Yes! Right between the eyes! Did you see that? Anyone? Of course not. Okay, then. One more time. Tally, not now! I'm trying to protect us from this Philistine. Whoa! No, not that way. Come on. Back to your mom. Right, Philistine. Oh, wait! Right between the eyes. Oh, of course. That one you saw. Tally! Tally, no! I'm coming, girl! Whoa, easy! Shira! I will bring her home safely. Whoa! Tally, wait, no! There you go. I'm almost through. Okay. Oh! Tally, stop! No! Oh, that doesn't help. That does. Stop. Thank you. Yena haleni nafshi yeshove yancheni b'magalet tzedek leman shemo.
What you have just watched is a concept short for a musical animated feature film on the story of David, and our vision is to tell it in the same quality as movies like Tangled and Frozen. This is more than a movie. This is a movement to join people from all over the world to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.
You can help us make this film by going to angel.com/David to invest today.
Growing up in the wild of Africa was the most incredible experience, and it was there that I bumped into the most amazing character of God and fell in love with him. At the same time, I was reading David's story, and it just really struck me. On one particular canoe trip on the Zambezi River, where you could canoe for days and not see a human being, I was reading the scriptures and I read, "I found in David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart." And I thought how amazing it would be to do a film that would give people all over the world a glimpse into God's heart. We grew up on a farm that had no electricity. I only saw my first film when I was 14 years old, and it was such an electric experience. I was blown away by the power of film and the power of story to connect with people and move people. And from that day, I became passionate to tell a story on the life of David. The question is, can a group of farmers from Africa make a global hit that's going to reach the world? This is in and of itself an incredible David versus Goliath story.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And in order to tell a story as big as David, we need people from all around the world to come together.
Over the last 20 years, Jackie and I have just been blown away by how God has miraculously drawn talent to us. Now we have the most awesome, high-quality team.
Like Nathan Stanton, who spent 22 years at Pixar, Borja Montoya, a Disney animation alumni, other talent from massive films like Big Hero 6, Tangled, Finding Nemo, Zootopia, Moana, Prince of Egypt, and many more.
Our first breakout hit is Jungle Beat, an incredible and beautiful show. On our YouTube channel, we get over 2 billion views a year. We've got 7 million subscribers. We also recently released our first animated feature film called Jungle Beat the Movie. And incredibly, it was on Netflix's top 10 for over 2 weeks, both live action and animated feature films in the US. We are also doing a theatrical release of Jungle Beat the Movie in China later this year, and are in production of Jungle Beat the Movie 2. What really excites me is if you take Jungle Beat the Movie, we produced that for $5 million. And I'd really encourage you to go and watch it on Netflix to see the quality of movie we produce for that price. And just imagine the quality of movie we could produce on David with the proper budget. With David, we considered the route of engaging with Hollywood, and there is significant interest down that route. But we really felt that from a creative point of view, we need to stay the head and not the tail of this project. And it's a slingshot, like David went with a slingshot to fight Goliath. We really believe that the strategy needs to be outside the Hollywood system for it to work. In this vein, we are thrilled to be working with Angel Studios for distribution. Angel Studios did the TV series The Chosen, which has become the world's biggest TV series on the life of Jesus Christ. The Chosen has generated hundreds of millions of views and tens of millions of dollars. We've already got $19 million of investments and need another $35 million to complete this project. We need your help to bring God's heart to the world through the story of David.
Go to angel.com/David to invest in this film today.
And let's join together to try and make the world's most watched animated theatrical release.